The railroad. The boom towns. A new life. And the promised land. Once upon a time.
Welcome back to the Medium Cool Show.
Today, we have an absolute banger of a video. Join us as we travel back to the year 1968 and take in a flight to Almeria, Spain. Also, stops in Utah and Rome, Italy, specifically Cinematography Studios. Today, we're going to be talking about C'era una volta il West, aka Once Upon a Time in the West, directed by the one and only legendary filmmaker, director, writer, artiste, Sergio Leone. With a screenplay by Sergio Leone and Sergio Donati, with story by Dario Argento, Bernardo Bertolucci, and Sergio Leone. Yeah, fucking Once Upon a Time in the West, guys. You guys asked for it. It's here. We've talked about the previous Dollars trilogy with Clint Eastwood, so you guys can go check that out too. But the next one on the list after that for Sergio Leone was Once Upon a Time in the West. Yeah, I think this movie is a fucking magnum opus, masterpiece, operatic extravaganza, piece of art. Yeah, what do you guys think of it? What was your impressions going in? This is the third time for me to watch this movie, so I think I'm looking at it a bit differently than you guys.
Yeah.
But I think I can understand maybe where you guys are coming from for first-time watchers, you know? Because you probably had more of an assumption that was going to be more like the previous films, kind of more like a cartoony vibe to it. This one still has those elements of like a comic book style, but then it's also just very artistic in a different way. It's like probably his most art house film, I would say.
Yeah. I had high expectations going into it, and I feel like at this point in his career, Sergio Leone is a seasoned veteran of a director. Like, he has such an eye for what he wants, and he's able to execute it, make it look easy, and I just think he really puts all his tools into play in this one.
Yeah. Also, fucking Ennio Morricone's score.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
We gotta mention that too.
I was scared for this movie. I think westerns are a genre that, to some extent rightfully has been left in the past. I think it was good to see the works of a master at play here.
Have you seen any of the other films, like the Clint Eastwood ones at all?
No. I'd say the closest I'm getting is 2013's reboot of True Grit.
Dude, so you're really
That's
jumping.
A banger.
Yeah. Dude, I feel like this one is kind of hard to jump into for the first Italian Western, because I feel like, I don't know how you feel about this, Jack, but I feel like we've kind of seen a little bit of a development happening with Sergio Leone. Like, we understand his style, what he's going for, but this one is like, it's heavier, I would say. It's like a heavier film, and I think jumping into it, like, without knowing anything might be a little bit, kind of like have like a little bit of a shock, and you're kind of like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just how more methodical this film is.
Yeah, that's a good word.
It's like way more methodical, way more patient. His editing is like slower, and his shots are like held on way more, and it's more of a focus. I feel like his other films, it's about the gunfights more, like the shooting, whereas this one is like all about before the gunfight, like building up to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, but
I think my expectation was much more along the lines of like a classic cowboy narrative and good versus evil, but what we get here is really like a intense dialogue on capitalism and like manifest destiny.
Fuck yeah, dude.
So I think that was a pleasant surprise for me in watching this movie.
I want to say too, like, Sergio Leone, he does westerns like any other because he's so good at building tension before a scene. Like, even from that first scene we get, just silently, like, we know that those three goons are, like, waiting for something, you know? We don't know what, and they're just, like, doing all these little weird things while they're waiting, and the tension's just building and building and building, and then the train car leaves, and they all stop, you know? And,
and we gotta talk about Mr. Charles Bronson. This is the first time we're talking about Charles Bronson on the channel, but he's a fucking goat to me. You got Henry Fonda playing the villain. You know, that's going against type for sure, because he's usually kind of like a more meeker, kind of like nice dude, like hero.
Yeah.
But this time he flips it on him. And first when Henry Fonda is Sergio Leone's favorite actor apparently, and he went to him with the script, but first he turned it down. And he's like, "Oh no, dude! Like I want you to play like this villain." And Henry Fonda wanted to have a mustache and like long hair, and he was like, no, that's gonna look fucking cheesy. Apparently that's what he said. And then we have the introduction to Charles Bronson's character, who's kind of sort of a spiritual successor to the Man with No Name, with Clint Eastwood, because he offered, after the Dollars trilogy, Sergio Leone offered that role to Clint Eastwood, but Clint Eastwood was like, no, I don't want to do it. Like he didn't want to work with Sergio Leone anymore because I think he felt like he worked at like a really slow, methodical pace. And as we know with Clint Eastwood, he doesn't want to do that at all. He just wants to do like one take and move on. So he turned this down. So we got Charles Bronson in the cast. And then we also have sort of the heroine figure, Claudia Cardinale, Italian actress. Apparently he cast her just because they got like a tax break because she's an Italian native. But yeah, fucking Charles Bronson, this is right when he was about to hit like superstardom in Europe, because the same year as this, he made Adieu Mon Ami, aka Farewell Friend, with Alain Delon. And at first, Charles Bronson's career in the early 60s, he was kind of just playing supporting characters or like kind of just like side characters in like the Magnificent Seven and shit like that. And then what he did was he was turning down, supporting roles in America, and he went to Italy to star as a lead man along Alain Delon. Farewell, My Friend became the highest grossing film in France that year, and it made Charles Bronson one of the biggest stars in Europe at the time. He became a star in Europe before he became a star in America, because then you have all those like 70s revenge films, and that's when he becomes the iconic Charles Bronson, like super famous actor. So this movie, I feel like it's super timeless because Ennio Morricone kind of utilizes for its time a sort of contemporary yet operatic score where it's like an orchestra. And I feel like that kind of classical style always is going to be timeless, because you can use like a Mozart score or something in a movie now, and it'll still kind of fit and it doesn't get dated. You know what I mean? When sometimes you watch a movie from back in the day and you use contemporary music for the time, and then you're kind of like, ooh, kind of like dates the movie. Whereas this movie is just gonna like live on because of like how everything is so practical. All the shots are just like perfect. All the editing that goes with the flow of the music. It's like a real like big epic opera. And that's like the thing about the Italians, is that they keep things so classy. They understand aesthetic. They bring in that classical, traditional kind of Renaissance style, but it's like has like it's sort of still modern. Kind of the way that they do it is kind of like a modern like way of doing that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
no, I know.
We gotta talk about the shots, dude.
I mean, the shots are beautiful. Like the sprawling landscape, but also this is definitely the movie. I feel like he's almost like channeling De Palma in this or something. Like that camera's never still. It's just slowly like panning, or has like some kind of crane shot, or it's like dollying in or something like that. There's always like a cool plan shot that I think is like,
dude,
what makes this amazing, dude.
Yeah, and the way that he does it, and you can see it also with Sergio Corbucci, who does the same thing, where like a shot will start in a close-up, and then by the end of it, it's in a wide of like a fucking thing. You don't even know that was like gonna happen. You that famous shot you were talking about with Claudia Cardinale going into the station, and then like and it looks empty from the beginning when she's walking up the train, and she walks into the station. You don't see what's behind the building, but you see like through the window, you see her, and then she walks out, and you just see like the whole landscape.
Yeah.
And then the other shot, also the thing I love. Charles Bronson's motivations are unclear throughout the entire movie. Yeah. But then when it's fucking revealed, it's like, oh shit. Like that like hits really hard. Yeah. And that whole sequence, I love that sequence when it reveals like the harmonica going to the mouth and the close up, and then it just pulls out to seeing like what's really going on.
The arch in the middle of the desert is so cool.
Such an amazing, it was so cathartic, and like the part where he like falls on the ground with the harmonica, and like that everything makes sense in that moment. And I just love how every time he sees Henry Fonda, he's just like naming people that like he's killed, and he's like, who the fuck are you? Like, what the hell? And then when he finally gets his revenge, he's like, who the fuck are you? And he takes the harmonica and like puts it in his mouth. It's just like it all wraps up really, really well.
Yeah, it does.
I feel like, and it feels worth it. It feels like you earned it as a viewer, because you're just like kind of waiting for like, it's a really long movie, but it's actually not that long compared to other Sergio Leone movies.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It just feels longer because there's just a lot of like shots, just like holding on someone's reaction, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
And it's very patient in that sense.
it's It's like hypnotic. It's like surrealistic in a way. It's like, obviously it's not a realistic kind of what's happening, but it's just like a very dreamy vibe. And this is like where he's really coming into his own of creating his own like that cinematic like language.
I think this really encapsulates like the phrase "every frame a painting."
Yeah.
Because
real.
in a lot of ways, like all those prolonged face shots of zooming in on people's faces doesn't feel that different than like going to an art gallery of like portraits and just getting to spend 40 seconds looking at this one and then moving on.
Yeah, and
I thought it was interesting too. I just want to like say this, but like even after Harmonica wins that duel, there's tension in the house where it's like depending on who walks in, he's like, even if he walks in and he's alive, then like he's still gonna leave. I thought that was really cool. And then like you hear the door open and you already know he won the duel. But you have like Cheyenne like unbuckle his gun and they're like so nervous. I just thought that was so crazy that he's just even building up tension for that scene.
And I love, and then the part with the light when he throws the lamp at him.
Yeah.
And it's like him like playing with the light going like that and shit, and like the music and everything. It's honestly, it's so sick. Like everything he edits, the shots, the
Henry
music.
Fonda's fucking amazing in this.
Yeah.
Henry Fonda's amazing as a villain. This might be one of my favorite roles of his.
I feel like Sergio Leone is kind of like an Alfred Hitchcock in the way where he's like, oh, like less is more. Like the actors are not like acting like super melodramatic. It's just like, okay, like you're a model and I'm going to shoot you. And I'm going to tell the story through editing. I'm not going to tell the story through like big exposition. Obviously this story is a little confusing, a little convoluted, you know what I mean? But it's not like he's giving you everything that you need to know. And I think the fact that it is a little confusing, I think maybe it's a little bit on purpose because you're trying to have this sort of like dream-like surreal quality of this epicness. That's like, I don't think, even watching it a third time, I don't think I can catch everything.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it's on purpose. Like it's not actually supposed to be all like concise in that way.
Yeah. Like that scene where, who is it? Like Frank arrives at the train and everyone's dead around there. And like you're trying to figure out what's going on and you don't really know, but you kind of have like an idea. He's not like handing that to you, Sergio Leone. He's like leaving that open to be explained later in a way. And it's not, even then it's not like directly said or something like that.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about what you mean by the capitalism and the manifest destiny?
Sure. So this is about the expansion westward, right? I mean, that's where we get the name Once Upon a Time in the West. But it is also, I guess, about the capitalist machine that was the railroads, sort of forging this path across the country and taking out anything in their way. And then I think also the fact that this is about building a town and colonizing the West, I guess is what makes it such a great narrative about America.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely the expansion of the West, but also I think this takes place closer to the industrial era, too. It's kind of also about the death of the West, as well as like the towns are being built and it becomes more and more industrial, and modern and shit. Once Upon a Time in the West, guys. One of my favorites we've talked about, I think, man. And thanks to our guest Peyton for coming on the show. Next on the docket, dude, Duck You Sucker. A Fistful of Dynamite.
Yep.
Giulia Testa.
Yep.
Have you guys seen that? It's coming up. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to see us talk about more spaghetti westerns. We've talked about The Great Silence previously, and then we talked about the Dollars trilogy, and we talked about a couple Lee Van Cleef pictures as well.
And also some more Jean-Claude Van Damme movies coming your way.
Dude, fuck yeah, bro. On God. Slat Gang, YSL, Free Young Thug. Truly humble under God.
We're reviewing Marvels too next.
Dude, fuck yeah, dude. Marvel fans are cool.